Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Welcome, everyone, to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method. I am known as the queen of cold calling, and we have a very, very special guest today. Connie Whitman. I'm so pleased to welcome Connie Whitman. She is the CEO of Changing the Sales Game. Connie, she's high energy, she's passionate, she's heart-centered, and she has a very enthusiastic approach to sales, teaching, and coaching. She's been doing this for 20 plus years, helping business owners, leaders, sales teams build powerhouse sales organization. I love this part. She's a three-time #1 international best-selling author of her book, ESP, which stands for Easy Sales Process. How about that? And 7 Steps to Sales Success. Speaker. She's a speaker. She's a podcaster. And she teaches, she has transformational tools and content that help business owners and salespeople grow revenue. And her podcasts are Changing the Sales Game and the Enlightenment of Change. Welcome, Connie. I am so happy that you are here today.
Thanks, Wendy. I'm excited to be here. And if we can help people make more money, you know me, without being icky, sleazy, and manipulative, and really come from that place of love, care, and respect, let's do it. And let's help people make money in the process. It's all good, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I have to ask you a question. Maybe you know the answer to this. Why is it that so many people think sales is sleazy?
I actually have an answer to that.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So it's fascinating because I don't know if you've ever been part of my workshop, but I have a free workshop I do a couple of times a year, and it's called Eliminating the 5 Layers of Buyer's Resistance. So where does the buyer's resistance come from? That perception or perspective that sales is icky, sleazy, manipulative, right? So through the years, think about the movies, Wolf of Wall Street, Glengarry Glen Ross. The newest one was Madoff, right? With De Niro. He made off with people's money. Those types of movies through society kind of give us that vibe of sales rip you off, and you're going to part your money and not get anything in return. Additionally, as humans, as people, every time we go to buy something, I do read consumer reports when I have to do big purchases for cars and stuff like that, because we buy, we don't lease. So here's the thing, though, when you go in, some of the dealers are lovely. Some of them are pushy jerks. So everybody is not a pushy jerk, but here's the thing. We've all been ripped off. You've bought something. I've bought something probably multiple times in our life. We get home, we try it, and we think, oh, this isn't what I thought I was getting. So being duped, ripped off, that's where that whole sales being sleazy, icky comes from. And you and I, Wendy, that's not the school listen, I've been in sales 40 years. I think you're similar, right? That crap was going on 40 years ago too. I just didn't buy into it because I wasn't willing to sell my soul to make the dollar. I wanted to build relationships. So that's how you and I think, are just naturally wired. So sales for me was never icky, but we've all been duped and ripped off. And that's where that comes from, where we get that buyer's resistance. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I always tell my clients, if you don't want to be perceived in a certain way, don't do the things that make people perceive you in that way.
That's exactly right.
So, yeah, but we're jumping ahead because The first question I actually had planned to ask you was, how did you get here? You've been doing this for 40 years. How did it all start?
It's interesting. So after college, I was going to school at night for my MBA. And I had a job working for a credit company Loved it. I ran, this is ironic that I had mentioned the car dealerships, but I ran the leasing department. Now, back in the 80s, Nobody knew what, see, I'm dating myself, Wendy, back in the 80s. Leasing meant nothing. So what would happen is the dealers would bring deals to the table that were retail, and I would call them and say, listen, this is a business owner. Back then, not the case anymore, but business owners were able to write off the whole car payment. So they would say to me, oh, we don't know how to do the calculation. And so I coached them. I showed them how to do the calculation. I coached them when they called the business owner back. This is what you need to say because it's going to benefit them, and they could talk to their accountant. But I'm telling you, they could write off the whole thing. So, okay, fast forward within maybe 2 months of doing that, of teaching, I was just educating the dealers. I started getting in probably between 200 and 300 lease deals per week. So I grew the department exponentially. So fast forward, a sales position comes in. And all the dealers, they were all men. They were calling me. I was a kid. They're like, Connie, you're going to apply, right? And I'm like, I don't know anything about sales. What are you talking about? They were like, what do you think you've been doing? You're helping us sell to the clients, and they're bringing referrals in. And so everybody's business was growing. And I'm like, oh, I did that? No idea, Wendy. Swear to God, true story. So that's how then I went to the boss and I said, hey, I want to try out for this sales position. And I was a girl. And at the time, the car dealerships, they wouldn't promote me. They wouldn't allow it. So he said, my boss was amazing. And he said, you've outgrown us already. You need to go and find something else. And you do belong in sales. You have this natural gift to just make people feel comfortable, and you educate. And I was never sleazy because for me, sales is educate. So what's the situation? Who's in front of me? How can I help them? Literally, that's my sales advice in a nutshell. So that's how I got started. And then I went, while I was going for my MBA, because that wasn't enough pressure, I actually went for my insurance license, my Series 7 license, and I became a financial advisor. So that's what I did. That was 40 years ago.
That was 40 years ago. So how did changing the sales game, your current company, how did that come about?
Yeah. So see, again, right, time marches on. So 21 years ago, when I started my business, the industry I was in, I ended in banking, and I become an executive in banking, but we were going through merger mania back in the 90s. And I had 2 babies at home, and I came home and I said to my husband, I can't do this anymore. I need control over my time with these kids. I never see them. I want control of my income. Every year I feel like, do I have a job? Do I not have a job? I can't live like this. So my husband, we're married 30 years. He said to me, what do you want to do? Like, we needed my income. I didn't want to get fired, and I want to start my own business. So he gets me. And so I did that 21 years ago. Now, about 2 years ago, probably when COVID hit, like you, I think you did a lot live. Like, all of my clients were corporate at the time, and everything I did was live. I spoke live, I trained live, I networked live, and then COVID hit. So I jumped on the networking like everybody else did and learned about digital products. Who the heck knew? I learned about lead magnets and email lists and all of this language that meant nothing to me. And I immersed myself in it. And I realized that all the programs I had created over the 20 years, I can now digitize them. But my old logo, it was, 15 years old. It was old. It was dated. And I'm old, maybe chronologically, but my soul, I think I'm 20, right? And I act like a kid and all of that. And I have this energy, and the branding was so off for me. So that's 2 years ago, changing the sales game came to life. And that's who I am. I want people to change how they approach sales so that they do it easy peasy, but that they can make more money and serve bigger and better. Because that's really what we're here to do.
Absolutely. And I always get so annoyed and frustrated when I hear the negativity around sales, and people that say, and I'm sure you hear this too, well, I don't want to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
Except they're salespeople.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
The irony, we're all sales. I don't care if you're in the back office. You have to go in and talk to your boss about your idea that you think is going to help save money or speed up an operational system. How do you get them to listen to you? That's, to me, sales also is communication skills. So we're all selling, whether we think we are or not. We're selling our ideas. We're selling ourselves if we're interviewing for a job. So sales skills, I think, are critical. To me, they're life skills. And the other thing, if you could get really good at those communication skills, you'll always have a job. You'll always have a job.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I hear this from my clients a lot, is, they're looking to hire. It's difficult to hire today. It's very difficult to hire good salespeople. And of course, the research shows that if you hire a new salesperson, well, 83% of them are gone. In 3 years, they've either quit or you've had to fire them. Absolutely. So lots of times I'll talk to my clients and they'll say, well, I want to hire a salesperson. I'll say, great, what do you have in place for them? And often the answer is nothing. So I'm wondering, I want to ask you, as an expert in this field working with corporations, what do companies need to have in place if they're going to hire salespeople in this market where it's difficult to hire people, and it's expensive to hire someone, keep them around for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then have to let them go? That's an expensive proposition. So if they're going to hire, what do they need to do to make sure that this person that they've hired is going to be successful?
And this is such a great question. And I know it's the big resignation that we're facing. So it is harder to find people. But here's the scary thing. If it's harder to find people and then you get them and you spend all this money training and time and effort, and then they're gone, it's very cost prohibitive. So here's just some of the things that I do with my corporate clients. And I caution people. I know there's different models out there like DISC and Myers-Briggs, and there's a couple of hiring predictive index, I think is one of them. I never think that's a bad thing to ask people to take those types of assessment, because you get an insight into their brain wiring. I would not base a hire or a fire, for that matter, solely on that. But for me, I always recommend that's another piece of the puzzle. So you see how people are wired. So an example is, I have a lot of clients that are introverts and they're business owners, and they hire me, which is so funny because I'm not introverted. But here's the thing. You can teach an introvert how to become super, super successful because they're the secret sauce. But you have to know who you're hiring. So if whatever you're selling, copiers, I don't know, whatever, and they need to be very dynamic, high energy, extroverted, they're not afraid to walk in and do cold calling, whatever it is, then you can't hire an introvert for that type of position. So again, who are you hiring? Make sure that you have different measurements in place. And of course, from a hiring perspective, ask the right questions, right? So I like to give scenarios whenever I would help my clients. I say, ask them a scenario. Here's the scenario. How would you handle it? Because you're getting an insight on the spot. How did they handle a bad situation or a tough situation or a tough client or a tough prospect? So that's another one. I would use scenarios versus just asking, do you have high energy? Sure, I do. Well, I showed up with high energy. It's an interview. Give them a scenario. Now you're making their brain work and you're truly seeing how they might respond. And then the other one that is, I will not take on a client if they don't do a couple of things. One, they have to use some kind of behavioral model, because when we sell, if I understand how I communicate, and I have a free gift for your folks, for your listeners later, but if I understand how I'm wired and how I communicate and what my natural superpowers are and what my blind spots are, tremendous amount of information from when I get in front of that client. Now I could see who they are, how they're wired, and then I could flex my style to connect with them. So they have to have a behavioral model. Whatever it is, doesn't matter to me. I'm certified in DISC. I have my own, and I've been part of Myers-Briggs, which is not my favorite. Other thing I tell them they have to do, otherwise I won't take the business, is, I sound so demanding, and I'm not. It's always a very lovely conversation because I give the logic of why they should have these things. But the other one is coaching. And even if they don't want to hire me for me to teach their management how to coach, and they have their own, I want to step in and tweak it or help them. And then what does that accountability look like? Because here's why that 83% statistic, Wendy, that you shared, why is it that high? Because we promote great salespeople into sales leaders. And I know in your career, you've had probably the scary, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've only had the bad and the ugly in my sales career. They should not have been coaching. They should not have been teaching. They should not have been managing or leading anybody because they were animals, in my opinion. So that's the other thing. Don't promote somebody who's good at sales and think they're going to become a good sales leader. So before you start promoting people into those leadership positions, do they have leadership skills? And if not, can you teach them before they step in, and then teach them how to coach? You have to coach employees. Otherwise, they create habits, good habits, some bad habits. We want to make sure that they're changing the behavior so they're serving and delivering the culture of the organization. You have to coach. It has to be very hands-on.
Well, I love that you're referencing the Peter Principle. And I am dating myself too here. But for those of you that may not know, the Peter Principle states that people in corporate America are promoted to their level of incompetence. So what that means is you've got somebody that's really good at a job, and so they get promoted to the next job. And maybe they're really good at that, so they get promoted to the next one, and they keep getting promoted till they get to the job that they cannot do, and that's where they stay. That's the Peter Principle.
Yep. Or they move them around. They move the problem around.
Yes. Yeah. And so I also love what you have to say about coaching, because it always astonishes me how many sales organizations, owners, sales managers have said to me over the years, I want to see how they do first. And usually how they do is not great.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You hire someone, you should be coaching them immediately. And I don't mean badgering them and babysitting them. It's not what I'm talking about. Coaching is not, it's not counseling, right? It's coaching, it's observing. So here's my take on coaching. There are a couple of things have to happen. Number one, you have to observe them in action, whatever that means. You don't interrupt them. You let them do their thing. And then when you get in the car, you get back to the office and you have a moment, you go out to lunch, whatever it is. Now we're doing that again. But say, hey, listen, I was really interested. You said this, this, and this. That was so good. I really, that was you. Here, let's talk about this piece. You kind of hit a brick wall and you said this, this, and this. Let's talk about that and see how we can make it better. So next time you're even more comfortable with what you're doing. But if I don't observe, how can I even make a recommendation? When you're observing, there's three things you should look at. What is their ability right here, right now? So Wendy, let's say if I hired you and I think, wow, she's got tremendous sales experience. I love what she does. But I don't know that this is you. So I'm not addressing this as Wendy, everybody. This is not, I'm just using it as an example. Well, let's say I observe that sometimes you can be direct to the point where I actually see the customer take a step back. Okay. You don't even know you're doing it. So when I coach you, do you have the ability right here and right now to temper that? Well, the answer is no, because I keep seeing you be way too direct and I see the client taking a step back. So when you don't have ability, I have to show you, I have to teach you. Ability is an easy thing to change. Raise your awareness to it. The other thing then is, are you motivated to change? If you say to me, you know what, I know I do it and I don't care, deal with it. Then that's another whole conversation. So if you're not motivated, you understand that you're doing it and you're not motivated, then maybe I do need to fire you, right? Because that, or tell you that you're going to get fired if you don't change. And the last one is your confidence, because sometimes we don't have ability. And the person says, when I get nervous, that's what I do. That's a lack of confidence. So as I teach them and I role play with them, the ability and the confidence are usually tethered together. So coaching is observation. What is their ability with whatever the skill is right here, right now? What is their motivation with that skill right here, right now? What's their confidence? And do not bring in the whole kitchen sink. So if I was coaching you, it would be on that one communication piece, not 20 different things that I would address with you. Because humans, our brains cannot change 20 things at once. We can change one or two little things at the same time.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I observe with my clients, because we coach and we practice with them and hold their hands and keep working with them. But once they get the muscle memory, once they practice and they just start to get comfortable, that insecurity, call reluctance, goes away. And it's really an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we often, one of the things I recommend to clients when they have a new hire is I recommend that my clients teach them nothing about what they're selling, teach them to set an appointment for somebody
That's right.
knows what they're doing, because then, first of all, you can teach somebody to do that in a matter of 2 or 3 months. And they become revenue generating quickly because they're setting appointments for somebody that can actually generate revenue.
That's right.
And if they can't do that, or they won't do it, how successful are they going to be?
You're cracking me up. I go into my corporate clients and this is what they say. They need product knowledge. I say, no, they don't. Listen to me. 15% of their success is product knowledge, opening the account, all of that technical stuff. They can look it up. So 15% of their skill is that. 85 is their interpersonal skills, their communication skills, and their self-management skills. When they should be getting on the phone. Are they getting on the phone, or are they procrastinating and saying, I'll do it tomorrow? Those two are 85% of their success is through the interpersonal and the self-management. It has nothing to do with product knowledge. And when I say that to clients, they go, oh, I go, the product knowledge will come. But if they can't get on the phone and ask someone for an appointment and what the benefits are to the appointment, they're not going to be able to sell when they do learn the product knowledge. They put the cart before the horse, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
2 years later, when they have all the product knowledge.
Oy vey. Meanwhile, all the money that's left on the table. Don't worry about the product knowledge.
Yeah, preaching to the choir here, Connie. I love it. So I want to ask you about, some examples, before and afters with your clients. I want to ask you some of your favorite coaching tips, techniques, tricks. We're going to take a quick pause right now for a word from our sponsor, Salesology 3X Appointments. You know how frustrating and stressful it is when you leave every sales meeting wondering if your sales team knows how to sell because they're not selling, and all you ever hear from them are excuses. They blame your marketing. They say you need to do more social media. They say you need a new website. You know something's wrong, but you don't quite know what it is, and you're even starting to wonder if it's you. You don't have a lot of options. You could fire them all and start from scratch, and that would be expensive. And you're really sick of waking up in the middle of the night wondering how to fix this. Well, imagine instead that you have an easy-to-use, replicable system that ensures your team can easily schedule qualified appointments. And imagine that your team is excited and motivated, no more excuses, and you feel good. Salesology 3X Appointments can make that happen. If you're a business owner or a sales manager with an underperforming sales team, let's talk. Click on the link to my calendar in the show notes, schedule a time, we'll talk. I look forward to it.
Love it.
And now I am back with Connie Whitman, CEO of Changing the Sales Game. So I have to ask you, give me some examples, some tips, tools, ideas that our listeners can use if they're coaching salespeople. What's the best way to go about this?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I have one, Deborah is her name, met her about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And she was in an entry-level position, client facing. And so she came through my training. She was nervous. She was introverted. English was her second language. She was terrified to do role plays in the class, very, very, very insecure about herself for a number of reasons. And I remember just slowly but surely building up her confidence, giving her scenarios and role plays that I knew that she could do well. So you want to give people the little wins when you're starting, especially if they're really, really nervous. Remember, this was a client, so I didn't do the hiring, but they did hire the right person because she was absolutely smart and amazing and kind and could connect. The clients loved her. So fast forward, maybe within 5 years, she moved up the ranks, became a manager, became a business development officer, super successful, and had her own team of people that she was coaching. And I'm going to say maybe 2 years ago, I saw her somewhere, it was on Zoom or something. And she said, "Do you remember when you first met me?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Who would have thought?" And now she's running a team and super, super successful. And she was very grateful. And I said, "You did all the work. I was just the guide, but you did all the work." So give little wins. That builds people's confidence because, again, as confidence grows, ability, they bite into it and they get more courageous to learn and implement. It becomes this whole momentum thing. So the second cool story is now with COVID, I've been working with private clients, business owners as well. And this one young lady, she came in and said, "I hate sales. I suck at sales. I can't do sales. I'm thinking about closing my business. But I saw you talk and I follow your podcast and I feel like you're talking to me. So I'm going to see if you can help me." I said, "Okay, I'm up for the challenge." So that's another thing too. We have to deal with mindset. People say, "I suck. I can't. I'm not good." Why? Why do you feel that way? And again, I gave her a couple of easy wins. And now, well, I'll just tell you, within 9 weeks, right? She paid for the program. She redid her bathroom and she took a vacation down in North Carolina at Myrtle Beach. Like, are you kidding me? And I said, "Oh, I thought you hated sales." She goes, "Oh my God, it's my favorite part, talking to my clients." So sometimes there's a little bit of a mindset shift, but through coaching, we can work people through that, again, by giving those little wins. So that's my biggest tip. Now, coaching tip you wanted. So you had questions before I share that.
I want to say something because you've mentioned working with introverted people a couple of times.
Yes.
And I just want to share with all of my listeners or our listeners who might be introverted. I'm an introvert, so it is possible.
I never knew that, Wendy, because you seem so outgoing and vivacious. So again, learned behavior, right? We can learn how to.
You can learn.
Yes, that's a really good point.
You're meeting my Wendy persona.
Yeah.
If you met me at a social event, I would be the one standing in the corner clutching my glass of wine.
Interesting. I never knew that about you. See, I learned something new about you, my friends.
And we're telling the world.
We're telling the world. No holds barred here.
No holds barred. So, yeah. So what else should people that manage salespeople, if they need to coach them, they've hired someone, they want to keep them, they need to make them productive. What else do they need to know? Small wins.
Small wins. Coaching should happen every day on the fly, meaning you hear me say something incorrectly, quietly pull me aside. Don't do it in a public place and just say, "Hey, listen," and do it respectfully. "I heard you say this. Try this next time. I think you might get some more leverage out of it." So do it in a very conversational, not punitive way. You should sit down every month. Once a month is always my recommendation, to where you do observations all month and you write notes reflecting on, do they have the ability with X skill, one skill? Focus that coaching session on one big win. So one big skill. Do they have the ability? Are they motivated? And where is their level of confidence? Again, right here, right now, not down the road. I know they could do it. Don't care about down the road. How are they functioning now? But once a month, you should be coaching them in a more formal way. We're talking 10 to 20 minutes max. Bring them in, say, "This is the topic I want to address. Here are some action steps for you to try." Do it for a week, come back, let me know how it goes. If it keeps working, keep doing it. And then next month we'll come up with some more action steps. If it's not working, don't wait the 30 days. Share, we could re-strategize, right? But you want to come up with tangible mini baby steps that they can take. This isn't hand-holding, guys. This is how you move the needle super fast, super easy. And oh, by the way, you're building this great connection with your employee that they want to do a good job. So, and you want them to be part of that planning, those action steps. Are you comfortable with this? You've got to get their buy-in, because then they do want to please you, right? Because you're taking this time to really nurture them. And then they buy into the action steps. They're going to execute them, and you're going to get the results. Isn't that what we want? The results.
Yes. So can you share some tips about starting to shift people's mindset? For example, your client that came in and said, well, I hate selling.
So again, I asked her to record, because people are visual learners. So I asked her to record just maybe a 30-minute meeting, 15-minute meeting, and then I reviewed it and without her. And then I jumped on a call with her, and I would stop the video and I say, you keep telling me you're not good. Look at what you did here. This was spot on. At the end, you got the sale. Here, you got a little nervous. Tell me what happens. And then she talked to me, and I'm like, all right, let's try this. Make believe I'm the client. Role play it with me again, because it's a safe space. And little by little, it was a confidence issue for her. She had the ability and she was motivated. She had hired a coach previous to me and basically told her every day, you suck and you're never going to be good at this. Maybe you should think about closing your business. I can never imagine a coach saying that. That person should not be coaching. But little by little, I know, Wendy, me too. I blew my mind, but I would watch the videos with her and always build on her strength. And I'm telling you, by the third meeting, so by the third week, she was like a new person. She actually got on a call and she created a package on the spot, $2,000 package with the client, which is what the client needed. She said, I've never done that before. I was like, well, there you go. So again, little wins, but watching people, that's the observation. And since we were still in COVID, I had to do the video, but me watching it privately so I could get my thoughts together and look at her ability, motivation, and confidence with that client, I was able to address it, give her tips. She tried it within 3 weeks. She was a rock star.
Yes. And I also find some of the things that people say to themselves about what they are doing. We teach prospecting. So some of the things people say to themselves about talking to people they don't know, it's kind of crazy sometimes. And so I often find that I have to challenge them in a nice way.
Yes.
But say, when they tell me things like, nobody wants to talk to me, well, is it possible that the people you're calling are just busy and they didn't pick up the phone that day? Is that within the realm of possibility? and it takes a little bit of time, but you can start to shift people's assumptions, and then it's transformational. Everything changes.
Yeah. And that's part of the communication, Wendy, what you just said. We all have filters, and sometimes we don't even know why we're feeling or thinking something because we've never reflected on it because no one just shined a light. So you're shining a light saying, well, wait, okay, I hear you, right? You want to be heard. Say, could this have been a possibility? Could this? And then you hear him say, well, yeah. Okay. So maybe it isn't that they don't want to talk to you. Maybe, again, what's that filter telling you? Let's just give a different parameter or a different paradigm or a different way of thinking. People just need to be shown. Again, it's coaching. It's all about coaching.
Do you ever find yourself in a position where perhaps you've been hired to work with the salespeople, but you end up needing to also coach the manager, because the manager might be the one saying sales sucks and you suck at sales. And
yes. All of the above. So here's the other thing. And it's interesting because when, we have hierarchies within corporations. So you have an executive, and then you have maybe like a regional level, and then you have maybe a market level, and then you have the salesperson. So if the person at the top is horrible at coaching and the next person's bad at coaching, the next person's bad at coaching, that poor salesperson might be doomed, right? So you have to, here's another thing. If I'm a salesperson, and I have done this through my career, where where I hit a roadblock and I wasn't sure why. Nothing, what I was doing stopped working, right? So I would go to my boss. Again, this is the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've had the bad and the ugly. And I went, this is a true story. I went to one of them and I said, I don't know what's happening, but I'm missing something. Can you talk to me? Can we strategize, schedule a meeting? You know what he said to me? He goes, you know what? Get a phone book while you're watching football on a Sunday. Go through and just pick your zip codes. Maybe you just need different people. Maybe the lists you're buying aren't good. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, while you watch football, that's good. You can do that while you're watching football, right? And I went, okay, thanks. I came home to my husband and I said, so I need to look for another job. That's not coaching. I truly went open and said, I don't know what I'm missing, right? I was still young. I was in my 20s, maybe early 30s. Can you help me? And that was the answer I got. I left the company and I thought I need to find someone who I thought I asked a good question, asked for coaching, and that's what you get. So when you have someone who really cares at the management level, ask them, say, can you observe me? Can you see? I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what it is. Guarantee they'll see something you're missing. And that's just a great way to start. It's your career. Own it and go and ask for help. That usually works.
And do we turn the manager around from selling sucks?
Yeah. Again, you'd have to go to your manager. And if they're not a good coach, maybe you teach them, say, you know what I need from you that I feel I'm being held back on my own because every day or every week on a Friday, can we meet and can I tell you what I'm doing? And then you could troubleshoot for me, especially if they were good in sales and you're telling them what you're doing. They're going to be able to strategize and troubleshoot for you. So maybe they're not coaching you, but you can tell them, they're not observing you, whatever. Tell them what you're doing and saying, how can I do that differently? What do you think? Can you strategize with me? Ask for help. And if they're good in sales, they'll give you some really good insight and good things for you to try.
This is really great, Connie. And I know you mentioned earlier that you have a gift for our listeners. So would you share details, please?
I do. I love giving things away, Wendy. It's fun, right? And that'll get them people, guys. If you take the gift, it'll get you on my list as well. So you can opt out if you hate me. That's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But here's the free gift. It's called communication style assessment. I created it with a partner about 6 years ago. And here's the deal. You take it, it's 10 minutes. You take the assessment, you'll get a report spotlighting your natural superpowers of how people see you. It's how you are perceived when you communicate. Kind of important to know that. You also get a report, which is your lowest style, which when you're with a client that's opposite of you, it gives you some ideas on how to strategically approach that, because your lowest score, you're never going to become that person. I will never become an introvert, right? But I have a lot of clients who are introvert. So using this tool, right, I've been able to coach and communicate and help introverts figure out their secret sauce as an introvert. Nobody can become me. I cannot become anyone. So this report really gives you your report so you understand you. And then it also gives insight as to how to perceive the client and then flex your style towards them. Great tool. It's a tangible tool to help you improve communication. So I hope you enjoy it. And it's changingthesalesgame.com. And then it's communication style assessment. You'll put that in the show notes. Easy.
We'll put that in the show notes. Cool. People can just click on it, make it really easy. Cool. And so this has been great, Connie. I am hoping, if you do me a favor, put your hand over your heart and promise me that you'll come back.
Yeah,
so we
of course.
Can keep talking.
Anytime. You tell
wonderful.
Me, yes, you send me your calendar link. I'm on it.
Okay. And so I want to thank our special guest, Connie Whitman, CEO of Changing the Sales Game. And I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders. Do check out the show notes for all of the links, the link to Connie's gift. Share us on social media, tell your friends, give us good reviews. And one more thing, till we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
Love it.
Thank you, Connie Whitman.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.